And all right. Let me click on a few things here. All right. Welcome everybody to the final CEO Masterclass. And again, we have had an amazing summer getting together, and we use a World Cup theme, but because Spain won, I am in Mallorca, right here on the beach in Spain. If you believe that, I can sell you a bag of goods of something else. The reality is the World Cup is done and the champion has been made. It was Spain in a uh, tough finale for Argentina, which I was rooting for, by the way. Sadly, some people win, some people lose. Most importantly, is none of the people here are losers. We all won at the end because we all learned something in the summer. We made some good relationships and friendships along the way. And I wanted to first give a big round of applause to everybody who made it till the end. Uh, you guys, this is how life is. We sometimes we decide to do something, and along the way, somebody interrupts us or something happens, and we just drop whatever it is that we had in mind. But you guys, the ones that are here, are already successful because you took your time to spend these 6 weeks with us, and we learned a lot of things in the past 6 weeks. Who wants to tell me what you guys learned this summer? But tell me, you guys remember? It's been 6 weeks. Anybody can tell me who was the first speaker? Who was the second speaker? Since Elvis, since I have you on the video, who joined us before? So the first one, yes, Dominic. I know you took notes.
Yes, so our first speaker was Mo Hassan, and he gave us a really great breakdown of AI and gave us lots of tips and tricks to do and everything about AI. I mean, I have so much in my notes here that I could go over if you'd like.
Yeah, please share.
Yeah, so first he spoke about a lot of things about AI that aren't true, and then he touched on how to organize information on on the fundamentals of everything in life that's important to you with no substitute for learning. And then he gave lots of tips and tricks about Claude and what to do with Claude. He gave a lot of websites as well. I can share them in the chat after. But yeah, it was a great first presentation. I mean, Mo Hassan kicked us off to a great start.
Well, Mo is always impressive in the way that he speaks, and he's always ahead of the game. Mo is the CEO of Into Power. So if anybody wants to find out a little bit more about what Mo is doing, go to intopower.com and check some things out there, including the AI Academy. But he spoke greatly about AI and those that know AI, because people are scared that it's going to replace our jobs. In reality, the jobs that will be replaced are the people that don't know AI, right? These are the people that will most likely lose their jobs. The ones that are not familiar with what's happening in AI, that cannot manage it, right? You guys can orchestrate and manage this process, and you'll be ahead of the game if you do. So yeah, great job, Dominic. Week number 2, we spoke to Otto, right? Otto was our speaker. Anybody want to share about Otto? Maybe Jack or Lorenzo. Anybody remember what Otto said?
I'm pretty sure I missed that week with Otto.
Yeah. So Otto spoke to us about communication, how to communicate effectively. No, you guys remember anything about that, Dominic? So you have the notes. Anything that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great presentation. I I I absorbed a lot of it, but I don't think I can put it as great as he did personally. I'm trying to find my notes on it. I think it might be in a separate notebook here. But
Oh, again, just know that the importance of sharing your story. Remember that, how to share your story, and the way that you present yourself. In a story is how what attracts people. So yeah. Uh, then we had Elena. No, didn't we have Elena after? Yeah. So Elena spoke to us about impact and how to make a difference. Primarily she spoke a lot about ESG. She gave some good examples of companies that are doing impact and how they're looked at more positively, right? So she encouraged us to be more focused on creating an impact, right? And then Ignacio came along. No, I think I was the one that spoke afterwards. No? And I spoke to you guys about the importance of falling forward, no, failing forward, which is no matter how many times you lose or think that you're losing, to just regroup fast and just keep moving forward. No, surround yourself with good people, right? And be able to quickly shift and continue your journey. And then Ignacio spoke to us about how he works internally. He works for one of the largest companies in the U.S., Ryder Corporation, and how he interacts with different people um, to 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 move things along. No, to move things along. Um, and then finally today we are going to top this off with strategy, right? And before I present our speaker, so a longtime friend of mine, a member of our board, and also a great mentor and friend, mentoring a few of you. Um, we're gonna finish this with strategy, but strategy not only focus on execution, but focus on how do you make this work for you and start with the beginning, how to present it correctly, how to talk about your strategy, who to talk to about that strategy, and then obviously execution is very important. You're having a great strategy and nobody doing anything with it, and it doesn't work, right? So here's where Mike is going to share with us his thoughts. So before I introduce Mike, last thing I want to say is it was a great pleasure to get to know all of you. What's going to happen right after is everybody here. We said that we were going to present your presentation to the entire membership of Apprentice Worldwide, particularly the ones that are in the fields that you're looking for. So, what are you going to do? I told you, focus on two parts. Part number one, what you learned in those 6 weeks, key takeaways and how it impacted you. More importantly, not so much about what they said, how it impacted you, how it applies to your life, right? It's not copying and pasting their presentation. Yeah, if you're missing one or two presentations, don't worry about it. I have them recorded, so I can share those with you. I know, Alan, you had asked me for some in the past, no? So I'll share that with you. And then the second part is the 6 things that you were supposed to talk to your mentor about, which you probably will had 1 or 2 meetings, 3 meetings, which were, the industry that you're in. You talked about him or her. You talked about the location where you're at, no, and a company that you were looking at, and finally, you were supposed to talk about you, right? And have a discussion so that your mentors could give you feedback about whatever it is that they think it's important that you make a shift, okay? Or if everything's fine, everything's fine, okay? So those are the 2 parts that you should work on in that presentation, okay? If you want to use AI to do it, I do that all the time. You can blah 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 blurt it. Use Gemini ChatGPT or Claude to explain what it is that you want to, and then use those. And you can do it in. I'll give you a hint. You can do it in. Use Canva if you already know what you're gonna do, or have Gemini Notebook now, which used to be Notebook LM. Do something nice for you. Use the tools available and ready for you to do that. Okay. Lastly, um, lastly is I want to have a moment of silence for just 1 minute for the loss of our great friend and mentor Federico Marin. Federico was supposed to speak to us last week. Unfortunately, he passed away on Saturday. Um, Obviously, I've been praying a lot for him and his family. I will be attending the novena tomorrow in his church on behalf of all of us that cannot make it or in other countries. But like I told you, we are adopting Federico Jr. into our community. Make sure that he knows that nothing will replace his dad, but at least that we can try to help him just like we help each other out. But Federico is going to need all the help he can get without his dad around. Funny enough, that's what happened to me, and that shifted my entire life. Hence why we have Apprentice Worldwide. The reality is, this was part of the motivations when I lost my dad. I was 25. I didn't have very many people to ask advice from. And then once I became older, I wanted to make sure that people had a chance to have somebody to come to. That's not their parents, right? When you have career questions. And I created a community, built a community with my friends, right? Not me alone, but all my friends, so that people can come and not feel judged, right? And just move their career and their business forward, because that's what I needed at that time. And I think that all of you can benefit or will benefit or have been benefiting from all that. Last thing before I give it to Mike is, if you give me your presentation, I will share it like I promised, number one. And number two, you will all get a certificate of participation, right? For being here for the entire period. Yeah, the if you miss one or two, it doesn't matter. If you give me your presentation, I will give you a certificate of participation. Number two, for those of you that completed that have not been part of Apprentice Worldwide, you'll all be part of Apprentice Worldwide and be part of our network for life. Life members of Apprentice Worldwide. And the benefits of that are, Elvis can tell you, Alan can tell you, it's just so many people available for many to answer anything, to meet up with people, become friends around the world. You guys have earned it, and I trust you with it. If not, you wouldn't be here, right? So that being said, the last thing that I would say is, welcome to Apprentice Worldwide, now as a member. All right. So without further ado, I introduce to you Mike Babbit. So Mike and I have been in trade finance for a long time. That's how I met Mike. And Mike, obviously, we can geek out about trade finance all day long, right? We can even have a discussion about trade finance that'll last us 2-3 hours, and the impact of trade finance in the world. But what drew me to Mike was not only his desire to advance in his career and make a better person of himself, is his big heart. Mike, I won't share all the story because I'll let you introduce yourself, but Mike has been a volunteer in many different organizations. Mike has been a mentor for so many years, has helped out so many people. And every time that I feel down and depressed, I call Mike. He's my friend, I love you, Mike. Thank you for all you do here at Apprentice Worldwide. And thank you for speaking to us about strategy. because I understand this part is, sometimes not that many people plan things, but they don't know how to present it to their bosses or how to execute it. So I appreciate anything that you can do here. And I acknowledge Elena is here as well. Elena, hola.
Hola, hola, gracias por tenerme.
Gracias, mi vida. Dios te cuide. All right. And Mike speaks Spanish, by the way. Dale, Mike.
And we're
Dale,
gonna
Mike.
do the 1 minute, Herman.
Yes. Before
Okay.
Mike begins, let's do a minute of
Oh, I see.
silence.
Mhm.
Thank you, everybody. Mike, take it away.
Very good. Thank you for that introduction, Hernan. Very kind. And thank you also for that moment of silence for Federico. As we talk about strategy, we can talk a lot about strategy, about how to do what, how to communicate, how to push your agenda forward. But I really think, especially as we just lost a good friend of ours, that it's important that we take a moment and we reflect on our strategy for life. Not that we can't talk about business strategies and how to win friends and influence people and what that might look like in your individual careers. But especially as we come off of just observing the moment of silence for Federico Marin, that we take a moment and think about our life strategy. What do we want to do and achieve and become? I'm going to share a presentation that I put together in anticipation of this to share with you a little bit about some of the things that I've done to add a strategic angle to my life. As Hernan mentioned, I am a longtime friend of Hernan's. We've known each other in banking for a very long time. I currently am the CEO of a company called CoLedger Solutions. The logo is this ship wheel. It's a technology company that connects banks. And if you're interested to learn more about the company, go to coledgersolutions.com. That's not what I'm going to be talking about today, though. Today, I want to talk about building your life with intention and how if you do that, other things will follow. And being strategic about your purposes, whether they're purposes at home, purposes at work, purposes with your friends, all of those types of things. And purposes and strategy is driven by your values. The direction you go, the decisions you make, and ultimately the fulfillment you gain in life is all based on where you want to end up. In Alice in Wonderland, there's the famous Cheshire Cat when faced with the question by Alice of he asks Alice, "Where do you go?" And she said she doesn't know, and the cat says, "Well, then it doesn't really matter which path you take." Obviously, he said it more eloquently than I just did, but I think that lesson applies to us as well. Your direction and your decisions ultimately influence your fulfillment. So ultimately, values are important. And I think that all of us like to think that we're driven by values. But are we? We need to take a moment and think, and maybe this is not right now, but sometime in the near future, have some quiet reflection and identify your core values. What do you really find important and what drives your life decisions? What brings you joy? What legacy do you want to leave? And obviously, when I say legacy, there's different stages in our life and sometimes different milestones in our lives. And, if I were to say, tell me about the class clown in high school, each of you would probably think of somebody else. or Matt, I don't know, maybe you were the class clown, and that's okay. But the people you're around, your behaviors and your actions influence the legacy that you leave. And the class clown in high school might not have wanted to be known as that. That might not be what he wants to be his lasting legacy. But just know that your actions and drive how you're perceived, and how you're perceived drives your legacy. Same thing at the end of your life. Obviously, I've mentioned Federico a few times. What would you regret not doing? What are some things you want to leave behind? What are some things, whose lives do you want to have an impact on? All of those types of things should guide who you are and guide the actions you take on a daily basis. That said, it doesn't mean that it has to be that philosophical every single time. Obviously, there's room for spontaneity and there's room for fun and growth. But as a general guiding star, if you value family relationships, if you value financial security, if you value making an impact, those are all things that might lead you to volunteer. It might lead you to play video games with your son. It might lead you to, and I realize not everybody here has sons, but that was something my son was asking me to do with him earlier today. He just got a new video game and he wants to play it with me. And yeah, is there time in my day to play a video game with my son? Absolutely. That's something I value, my relationship with him. And because I value that, should I make work calls? Yes, I probably should, but I should also play video games with my son because that's going to leave a lasting impact. Additionally, making an impact and having health and wellness goals are very, very important. So here's something that I do personally, so you know that it's not all just talk. So every so often, I have an online journal called Penzu. You can check it out if you're interested in using some sort of online tool. But I've written down 100 desires and values list. And if you squint carefully, you can read. This is an actual copy of my list, at least the first 27 items on it. And it's important to just kind of think in a quiet time, what do I really care about? And just let it free flow. I mean, there's no specific order. This is just stream of consciousness writing and what came out of my head and what I value. Every so often I'll repeat this exercise, but it's amazing how much these things don't change. And it's also really interesting and amazing how many things are repeated or repeated in different ways. I think then I take this list of 100 things and put it into Claude to have it reflect back to me what I think is important. And I think that's kind of a nice exercise because Claude or AI in general is very helpful to kind of synthesize a lot of information and make observations and maybe even throw some data in there on how many times I mention my family or how many times I mention hard work or creating things. In this particular list, I noticed as I was sharing it that I actually listed my relationship with my wife a couple times in the top 27. So that's important to know that that's a priority for me. In defining your core beliefs, it shapes your reality. So when you're thinking about yourself, you have to approach it with a lens of you already are that person. Even though you might feel like you're struggling with something, or perhaps a number of things. There are days when I feel like, man, I'm not hitting any of these things right, because there are tough days out there. But realize that you are capable. You can learn. You can and have success, and you deserve to have success. And as you see your core beliefs about others and about the world, generally your perception and your perspective on yourself will influence your perspective on others as well. If you approach life as a kind of a pessimistic person or as a very optimistic person, I think that bleeds through. I think Hernan is probably one of the most optimistic people I know, and I'm sure if he were to make his list, it would be very not annoyingly cheerful, but it would definitely there would be a positive vibe running through it. And I think that's an attribute that's also very, very important, is being a positive person and valuing positivity and valuing making other people happy. And that's the self that you see is sometimes different than the self other people see. And what I just described about Hernan is something that I see about him. He said some very nice things at the start of the call about what he sees in me, and the respect is mutual. It is an interesting exercise to go through that and kind of write down what you see, and then maybe ask somebody else not to write 100 things about you, but just to give them the opportunity to provide you feedback about what they see in you. And sometimes that's an interesting lens that will also reveal more about your values and your perspective, and also further color the way you see other people in the world around you. So building your life with intention. That's kind of what we're all, what I've talked to about this at this point. You might see that picture and think, oh, wow, that's a big tree. My wife and I have always wanted to be entrepreneurial, and we've had some successes in doing that. And we've built our life in a way that we have a tremendous amount of flexibility. Last year, we spent 2 months in Costa Rica. My second child finished high school in Costa Rica, and we went down and spent the 2 months after graduation with him and the rest of the family. And what you're seeing is my wife and my now 21-year-old. 21-year-old is on the right, my wife is on the left. They're climbing this enormous ficus tree. And the intentionality around not just climbing trees, but making time to climb trees and making time to be in Costa Rica for a couple months, and designing your career and designing your life in a way that you can either financially afford to, or make sacrifices that will allow you to do the things that are important in life. And if importance is going on trips or doing fun things, actually scheduling those things and making them happen is one part of intentionality that actually shows that that's something we need to do, and something that we should prioritize. By the way, just as a note, my daughter here on the right, she is a triathlete, and she actually next week is going to be competing in the Olympic distance U.S. national competition in Wisconsin. So very excited for that for her. So she's also competed in the 70.3 half Ironman in Marbella, Spain, the World Championships, and she also recently competed in the 70.3 half Ironman in Victoria, Canada. So she's all about living life with intention and making setting goals and making them happen. So way to go her. She did not get that from me, by the way. That's obviously my wife climbing the tree with her, not me. But good for both of them. In terms of acting in alignment with your values, when you are faced with a choice, people look at who you are. I know Hernan has shared his story several times, and when he was about your age, he was looking at some of the people that he was surrounded with and he was working with, and noticed they weren't behaving in a way that was in alignment with what he considered to be professional behavior or even legal behavior. And that's really important to know and identify what your core values are, because if faced with this in a situation, you might be willing or to consider behavior or things that wouldn't completely align. Now, don't misunderstand. People make mistakes, and that's okay as long as they learn from them. But as you're faced with decisions and faced with kind of strategic options, just ask, does this align with my core values? Will this move me closer to my vision? Am I being true to myself? And it's important too, when you're talking about vision, to think of what is my vision. You might have a pretty mission statement. You might have a pretty vision statement. You might have goals, which if you don't, please, as you're doing this self-reflection, create a 1, 3, and 5-year plan. Granted, that might change and might look very different today than what it does 5 years from now. But if you don't have a plan, it's hard to reach that goal. And ultimately, small and consistent choices shape who you are, and they build your reputation. Excuse me, and they build your reputation. And that's really what drives a happy life is being able to act in accordance with your values and being able to, at the end of the day, do what you feel like you need to do to promote your own agenda and leave a legacy, whatever you want that legacy to be. And whatever you want to be known for, being able to instill that in people's minds and being able to solidify your mission and vision. So when people think of integrity, they think of you. When people think of hard work, they think of you. It's very easy, unfortunately, to do the opposite, right? If you're caught doing something that's not in alignment with your values, that's not a good thing either. In fact, let me share a really quick story. Right after I graduated from high school, I was working for a telephone company. And I worked all summer out in the heat with a truck and a shovel, and with a friend who also had a truck and a shovel. And we were supposed to go out in the desert and do self-directed work that was very physical to do maintenance on these pedestals. Well, it was hot, and there was mud puddles, and there was trucks and two, seniors that had just graduated, and we decided to take the trucks for a joyride, and we just had a great time spinning donuts and doing all kinds of fun stuff in those telephone trucks. And then we washed them on the way home so nobody would know that there was mud up on the roof. We were just having a great time with it. Well, we get back to the yard, and we got called into the office, and apparently one of the telephone company subscribers had seen the telephone trucks out there in the desert doing donuts and driving way too fast, and they called the telephone company, and that pretty much erased a whole summer of hard work and reputation that my boss had built up in his eyes, because he thinks, well, if they did this and they got caught, how many other times this summer have they been doing this and goofing off, and have they really been working, even though we could show the results of our work? And I guess what I'm saying, it's very easy to destroy a reputation, and it's very easy to just let go and have fun and do stupid stuff, and just try your best not to do stupid stuff. Act with professionalism if that's in alignment with your values, and see those as you act with integrity and growth, how that leads to impact and impacting those around you. And ultimately, it leads to leadership as well, because when somebody thinks of somebody or you as a person, they'll think of you in that capacity, whether that's the 18-year-old that's out there doing donuts in the telephone truck, or whether that's the person who's working hard and producing results. In terms of your commitment, just decide now to define your goals, decide to act along with your beliefs, and deliver consistent action. I review every week. Every Sunday night, I do a review. I sit down and look at my past week and say, okay, how many days did I do my meditation? How many days did I do this? How many days did I do that? And then once a month, I write another journal entry that says, hey, this is what my last 30 days, last 90 days have been. This is what my next 90 days are going to be. And this is how I'm moving forward to that with my different kind of weekly progresses and different ideas of which direction I want to take my life. This is the final slide of, if you want, I think everybody here has my information, but there's a QR code that you can scan if you'd like to stay connected with me. But happy to be a mentor, happy to be part of this. And that, in terms of the prepared remarks, I really focused more on looking at your values and how your values align with the impact you want to leave. That being said, a lot of the promotional items that are not shared with me around this was around strategy at work. So I'd like to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about workplace strategies, how to communicate. In reality, this strategic conversation is kind of the culmination of all of the talks that you've heard thus far. Whether it's using tools like AI, and AI is important and it's going to change the world and already has. But I think AI is just another flavor of tools that in terms of lifelong learning and progression learning how to use tools, whether it's AI or in my day, when I was first starting out in my career, it was being a wizard at Excel and being a wizard at data analysis. Those are still relevant skills. And it's also important to learn how to learn new things. Additionally, communication is really important, which there was a presentation on communication. There was a presentation on ESG. There was a presentation on any number of things. And this is all kind of coming together in terms of strategy and communication and vision. So when you're talking about vision in a workplace, there's the vision that you create and there's the vision that other people create for you. Sometimes it's hard to drink the Kool-Aid, and it's hard to get behind a leader's vision, especially if it's not well articulated and especially if it's something you don't truly believe in. So I guess as you're going through your careers, you'll have opportunities to both be the leader and get on board with somebody else's vision. And you don't have to get on board with somebody else's vision, but it's pretty obvious if you're drinking the Kool-Aid or if you're not drinking the Kool-Aid. And you don't have to just do it lip service. Getting on board with somebody's vision is really critical to the amount of success an organization can have. I'll skip that story actually, because that's I don't know if I can tell it right, but basically if you think of an organization and what they're trying to achieve, if you think of a store clerk, if somebody's just sitting at the store clerk, think how a different store clerk might act if a store clerk were asked what they're doing and they said, I'm ringing up prices. Okay, that's one attitude, that's one approach for a store clerk. Another answer to the store clerk might be, instead of I'm ringing up prices, I'm growing the company. Because I'm ringing up prices and checking people out at the register, the company is growing and we are meeting our goals. That's maybe another level of commitment and ultimately viewing results instead of just ringing up prices. But imagine how the store clerk might act differently if they had that view. Compare that answer with the response that if a store clerk gave to say, I'm helping these people get what they need. I'm helping them have access to shampoo and toothpaste and whatever it is they happen to be buying. I mean, I'm just using that, thinking of going through a grocery store line. I'm giving these people's children food so that they can survive and their kids can be happy, and we can all help each other in this rat race we call life. How do you think that the approach and vision might be different for that third level of person versus ringing up prices or helping the company grow, right? And not that every store out there needs to have this transcendental, we're so, this is the broader mission of what we're doing. But as you look at visions and as you look at helping other people get on board with the visions, what would it take for somebody to communicate those different levels of belief and visions? It's pretty obvious, right? The person who's just checking things out, ringing up prices, they were trained, they're making $7.50 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is, and they're doing the job they asked. The next person might have been, they're doing the job they're asked, but they see the bigger picture. They're wanting to climb the ladder. They're wanting to help the company. And thirdly, the last person who's changing lives and helping the people who come through the line, how much more effective at customer service, or how much more effective of a person is that third person going to be? It's amazing to me to think of those kind of different levels of commitment and think of the levels of leadership that would have had to, what the leaders in each of those situations would have had to instill or train into that same store clerk to achieve the different levels of dedication. I think that there's a lot to be said about leadership and visions and strategy. Sometimes it's strategic not to pick a fight. You know, there's situations in work where people are running down the path, and it's a strategic option not to get behind a certain charismatic leader, or not to support an initiative that you know is bound to fail. And not that you want to be anti-supportive, or not that you want to be negative about it, but there are some things that are just stupid, and I get that. And it's okay to think that things are stupid. Just don't say it that way, and make sure that as you're communicating things, that rather than saying this doesn't work, come with an option. This doesn't work, and we should try this. Or this doesn't work because we haven't fully tested this product, and we should consider additional tests before we bring it to market, or whatever the angle or product is that you're considering. Make sure you're informed, make sure you think critically, and ultimately provide your honest perspective. Don't just blindly jump on the bandwagon because you want to be the store clerk that's helping the company grow. I've kind of talked a lot about different types of strategy, and we've got a lot of people that could probably talk about strategy. And as we look at strategy in different angles or different areas of our life, it's really impossible to talk about all of the strategic options you could have in this situation or that situation. But as long as your fundamentals and your values are in place to guide your strategy, you can effectively be happy with whatever you decide to do, because you're going to act in accordance with that strategy. And that's important because you never know what's going to happen next. You never know when the path that you're on is going to come to an end. You never know when people you enjoy working with are going to leave the company. You never know when your boss is going to get fired, or when the company is going to decide, you know what, we don't need you anymore. And that's okay. But build your strategy around knowing that that's going to happen, and knowing that no matter what you do, as long as you live in accordance with your values, you'll be able to feel comfortable with whatever happens and look back and say, I did that knowing I did the best that I could with the information I was given at the time I was given it. Here's a quick story, another quick story to close on. I started a school back in North Carolina. I was complaining about putting my oldest child through private school and the amount of money I was spending on private school tuition. And so I was complaining to a friend, and he said, well, I've got a group that's trying to start a charter school. Maybe you should come to a meeting. I did. We started a charter school, had 600 students and 50 staff members, an operating budget of over $5 million the first year. And we also went out and raised another $3.5 million to build our building and finance it. And it was really quite an interesting run. And it was a lot of fun. It really was a great time. But there was a lot of strife on the board. With charter schools, there's a board of directors. I was the chairman of the board of directors. We went to the state of North Carolina Department of Education, got permission to start this school. They gave us the money to start it. And with that comes a lot of reporting back to the state. Well, there was some very big personalities on that board, and very diametrically opposed personalities. I don't consider myself to have a big personality, but there were some really big personalities that were in constant contention in that board. And looking back, and this is, at this point, this is 10 years ago since I've been involved in that, even more actually. I think I left in 2015. But several times I've looked back on my experience with that particular board that I was trying to lead, and it was a bit like herding cats. You had a career school teacher who was the quintessential teacher's advocate that would speak up on behalf of the teachers and object to the policies that the principal was trying to put in place. You had the tech CEO guy that used to run a huge bank tech platform, and just a number of different personalities that did not get along. Ultimately, I ended up having to resign from the board because it just became too much for me to handle. And my daughter had graduated and was no longer attending my school, so I thought, I'm not going to continue to drive this board if my daughter isn't even at the school. So I ended up leaving the board, but not before we finished creating the school and getting it on its feet. Looking back, though, there was a number of decisions that we made that I really struggled with at the time, and that still kind of haunt me. I'm like, oh, wow, was that the right decision? Well, that was 12 years ago at this point. I can't go back and change it. But what I can say to myself that gives me a little bit of comfort is I did the best I could at the time with the information I was given, because I tried to act according to my values and the beliefs that I had, and is trying to help other people see the same vision and same direction. So I guess that's my hope for each of you as you're going through this career journey, as you're going through this professional development, as you're going through this even personal navigating family drama, or navigating romance relationships, or navigating life in general. Just know who you are and be able to reconcile your actions and your habits and your behaviors with your guiding principles. So that's what I've got for you today. Hope it was helpful, and happy to take questions and talk about anything that might be on your mind. Thank you. I'll stop sharing and we can just chat.
Go ahead, Albert.
Thank you. Well, Michael, thank you for your presentation. I loved it. And one thing that really captivated my attention was two themes that I saw as one narrative. One, how you're talking about the locus of control as an individual, as an employee, trying to see the unity of the greater good in your role, and then how you elaborated on that and how you were the chair of the school board for North Carolina. And so I have a question that does speak out of my previous inexperience, my previous immaturity, but I think it's just universal as well. How does one grow that productive locus of control? Because I know that not all employments I've had, I've wanted to move up the corporate ladder. There are roles that I've had just to fulfill my needs and to try to be honorable with my family, but not everything that passes my way is my cup of tea. So, how do I be strategic about that as well?
Well, I think it's okay to not be strategic about certain things. I mean, obviously, if you're just doing something to get a paycheck, it doesn't need to end up on your resume, and it doesn't need to be part of your experience. But I mean, obviously, you are doing it, and it's okay to do that, I guess is what I'm saying. When I was growing up, I had a job working on farms, and not just working on farms, but shoveling cow crap out of different corrals and mangers and stuff. That's not ever going to be on my resume. But they paid me 3 cents a foot to clean the cow troughs. So I did what I had to do. And so I think that we have this idea that everything we do has to lead to some sort of, pinnacle career crowning achievement, and it doesn't. I think everything we do is for our good, though, and everything that as we kind of decide what to do, we should focus on where we think we can grow and where we think we can make the most impact or make the most money, or whatever it is that we think is going to move us forward in whatever direction we need to go. So I don't know that everything has to be about a locus of control. Sometimes it's just what you need to do to get started. So good question, though.
Thank you.
There you go. Great. Anybody else? How about we ask Alan a question? Alan, you there?
Looks like he was. I don't think he is now. Oh, wait, there he is.
Hello? Okay, there we go. It wasn't working. Yeah, how you doing, Hernan?
How you doing? What do you think about this this guy, Mike Babbit? Is he a cool guy or what?
He's a cool, great guy, great guy. I've learned a lot from him being my mentor. I was really thinking about it. I was just gonna ask this question. It was one question like, what is like one step you would take to really find your core beliefs or core values? Like, does it have to be professional or is it just in general in
Well,
life?
I think that if you look at my core values, I've got my list of 100 things, and I shared a little bit of that list with you. But I've got professional things, I've got personal things, I've got family things, I've got friend things. I think those core values aren't too different, right? At your core, if you value honesty, if you value relationships, if you value people, you're going to have a different perspective on your career, the people around you, your friends. All those types of things are all going to kind of align as when it comes to making relationships and spending time with those people. So I guess my suggestion is just sit down in a quiet moment. If you're a religious person, pray. If you want to meditate, that's also helpful. Whatever it takes just to kind of put yourself in a state of open-mindedness and just kind of write what comes to your mind. And that at its core is who you are and what should guide you. I see Albert's note here. How did I arrive at my 100 values? I just sat down over a few sessions actually and just wrote until I just exhausted my brain. And if you go back and actually read them, like I said, I want to have a passionate relationship with my wife about 4 times. So obviously that was on my mind when I was writing it. But a lot of things are repeated and a lot of things are maybe said differently. But as long as you just keep spitting it out, it's interesting to go through and do an analysis or have AI do an analysis of, yeah, you mentioned, your relationship with your wife and your relationship with your kids and how important that is for you. That's one of your guiding principles. And because of that, when I was and I've always known that I know myself quite well, but even when I was in grad school, I had 2 job opportunities, one with a consulting company and one with the bank. And the bank wasn't an investment bank. It was just Bank of America. But I knew that I didn't really want to travel as much as I would have to as if I were to go work for a top consulting company. And so I actually turned down the consulting company offer to go take a bank job, which some people might say, well, that, may or may not have made sense. But for me and my goals and values, that was more important to me, to be able to not have to fly out every Sunday night and be back every Friday, because I wanted to have a relationship with my wife and kids. So I don't know, that's another example. But yeah, just sit down and word vomit until you've got 100 things and see how many of the times you repeat the same thing. Any other questions?
So Alan, you had another question, Alan?
Yeah. So would you say your goals and core values go directly hand in hand?
I think my goals are guided by my core values. And I think that sometimes they go hand in hand, sometimes they don't. I mean, I have a goal to finish remodeling my house. And I guess I have a 70-year-old house here in Salt Lake City. And I guess the core value there is that I like building things. I want to have a nice place for my family to live. And I'm too cheap to hire somebody else to do it most of the time. But so in some ways, that's my core value is that I love my family and I want a place for them to be. I also value financial security and want to build wealth by remodeling the house. Now, there's nothing in my core value that says I need to remodel a house to be happy, but that's kind of a result of some of my other core values. What else?
My core value is to pay attention to my wife every so often. And right now I have to finish the call on time. But thank you. Well, I saw Lorenzo had a question here before he saved me. Lorenzo.
Yeah, one quick question. What is, one piece of advice that you received early on in your career that has really stuck with you throughout your years of career?
Probably when I first started out as a banker, there was a career banker. He'd been in banking for 40 plus years. And I wanted to be in sales, and I really wanted to sell the latest thing that the bank was offering at that time. And I felt I would be good at it. And I thought that I could, that I was being passed over opportunities because of whatever reason. And he said, look, Mike, it's great that you want to sell. You need to understand banking before you can be a good salesperson. And at the time I was like, what do you mean? I understand banking. But I was still pretty wet behind the ears and green. And it wasn't until I learned banking operations and learned some of the other things that support banking that I became a much more effective salesperson. So I did eventually become a salesperson, but it wasn't until after I'd learned operations and learned some of the other things that my mentors thought I should know. So that's something that was helpful for me. Hernan, I know you want to end on time. I respect that. Anybody that has any additional questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a note. You've got my contact information. And obviously, Hernan knows how to get a hold of me too. So thanks, guys. It was fun.
Excellent. Well, again, Mike, you took it, in your own way and made it amazing. So I appreciate your feedback. One of the things that I learned about strategy is that sometimes we have none. and it's okay, guys. It's okay not to have a strategy and try to figure things out. The reality that what I learned is when I have no strategy, let's say that I'm on the floor, I have no strategy. Like I'm sure most of your strategies are, how do I get paid today? How do I make some money? And then how do I graduate at some point, and try to make a living. So whatever that basic strategy, at the end of the day, you devise a strategy as you go based on what you hear, decisions that you make, your friends, So what I do is something that I'll give you some practical advice is, Mike and I are now in your personal board of advisors. When we say we're your mentors, that's what it means. It means that you are Albert Corporation, Elvis Corporation, Dominic Corporation, Lowe's Corporation, Jack Corporation, and we are in your board of advisors, right? If you have a board that is of 50 people, you start getting confused, too many ideas going all over the place, It's best to deepen the relationship with, a board has probably between 5 and 10 people. And those are the ones that you consistently come to and bounce ideas with. By the way, this is what I do. What I do is I don't talk to everybody. I talk to my most trusted mentors that know me for who I am, appreciate me. Those are the people that love me and care for me because they're going to give me the advice based on knowing me. So I talked to Oscar Gomez, who was my boss when I was 25. I talked to Joe Longobardi, who was my boss when I was 30. I talked to JP Cuevas of Tom Ovation, who were my bosses at Bank of America. Ends up being a lot of my ex-bosses that I got along with. We continued our relationship, and those are people that I bounce ideas with. Now I bounce ideas with Mike. I bounce ideas with Ignacio. I bounce ideas with Mo, right? And those are my friends. Those are my friends and my peers. But when I'm looking for next level stuff, bouncing ideas with my peers is good, but it's best to go to the people that have lived a little longer. What's happening now is Mike and I are becoming older. The people that are older than us are retiring. and they want to play golf and they're retiring. But in the meantime, you guys have a network that will help you bounce ideas to what? To devise a strategy. And once you devise a strategy, then we give you some pointers on how to implement it. And then you go with what Mike said, no, which is go with your values, go with your the priorities that are important to your life, no? And then you use the story that you learn from Otto and how to build your story to convince people about the strategy. No, you use Ignacio's skill set that he uses by using emotional intelligence to kind of like get along with people, kind of do, you know, active politicking. You try things and you fail. You try things and you fail. It's okay. Professor Mistake is the one that teaches you the most, right? All these things, and then at the end of the day, you put it on AI, and maybe you you put it all that mix in, and it comes up with a strategy, and then you try to execute. No, so believe it or not, this 6 weeks, if you put it all together, it'll serve you to devise a strategy that you need for the next level. No, if you take a little from each class, take a little what Mike said, what I said, what the other guy said, and now you are, I know Albert is in a different position than Elvis, and that Lo, who's graduated from UF, and Alan, who's in New York, right? But what I tell people is, challenge yourself to not be mediocre. That's probably my biggest advice is, if you're gonna think about your strategy, think big, because you are all special people. Like I lived in a small island in the Caribbean, and I was from divorced parents, and those who know me know that I have come a pretty long way. If I did it, you guys can do it. If Mike did it, you guys can do it. No, we are Back to the Future. We are you in the future. So I'm letting you know that the only thing that you need is to be consistent, and the other thing is to have a little faith, man. To build your faith, because if you have no faith, you have no future, and it's gonna be bleak. No? Wherever you grab your faith from, I have mine. Mike has his. Albert has his. Everybody has their own. But whatever you have, try to build your faith. And how do you do that? Goodness. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good-hearted people, right? And it's hard to find it on the streets. Guys, I love you. Be good. Te mando un abrazo. I give you a big hug, okay? The next time that we meet is just to celebrate our graduation. Once everybody gives me their presentations, and I'll share with you, you guys have an opportunity. I'll give you one last chance for you to present your presentation to people, and I can record it and share it, okay? That'll be your graduation. You like that?
Yep.
Why not showcase you to the world by putting a little video? I'm giving all of you guys a chance. The ones that didn't come today, they have to get in line. But you guys who came to the end, we'll start with you. If you want to talk about you and what you want to do and impress the heck out of people, I know you can. You guys are awesome. But most importantly, we are here for you. We're not going anywhere, right? I told you, Apprentice Worldwide is for a lifetime. Whoever drops is because they don't find any value. But having 200 mentors around that are all want to help you out is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. Mike, thank you. God bless everybody.
Thanks.
I gotta go.
All right. See
Have
ya.
a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bud.